James chapter 2. My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ must not show favouritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, "Here's a good seat for you," but say to the poor man, "You stand there, or sit on the floor by my feet," have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my dear brothers and sisters, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him? But you have dishonoured the poor. Is it not the rich who are exploiting you? Are they not the ones who are dragging you into court? Are they not the ones who are blaspheming the noble name of him to whom you belong? If you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbour as yourself, you are doing right. But if you show favouritism, you sin and are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. Verse 14. For what good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm and well fed," but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is that? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead.
You're all going to not like me at this point because I need 2 volunteers and the kids are gone. Any volunteers in the room? Come on in. I'd be coming then, Christine. That would be great. I tell you what, sir. Remind me of your name. Percy. Percy, sit down for me, Percy. Take a seat on this chair. Christine, what I'd love for you to do is just take a perch down here on the step.
Right down
It
there.
is. Would you like a hand?
Yeah, I would.
Go on in.
Because I've got a new hip.
Oh. All right down there?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, we've got 2 people here, and they're both going to head off to school. I've got some things for them. I'm sorry in advance, Christine.
Oh.
Yeah, they're both off to school. I have got some things for them. Percy, I've got here a lovely pencil case filled with all the things you could possibly need in there. All right, pens, highlighters, pencils, the lot. Christine, I've got a wax crayon.
Oh, right.
Percy, of course, you're going to need to take some notes while you're at school. It's no good just having the pens. You're going to need some. Here's a notebook. Christine, I found a few scraps while I was at home. I hope they're all right for you to write on, okay? What else have I got? Oh, yeah, I've got some textbooks, Percy. They're for you.
Thank you.
They'll really help you get ahead in religious studies, all right? Christine, there's a few bits I printed off the internet. Good luck. And then I think, actually, if you're at school now, we've got some school meals for you both. Alison, you're going to bring Percy his school meal, my dinner for later. So, Percy, please don't spit on it or anything like that, yeah? And Christine, I've got you a bag of rice here. You might have to cook it yourself or something, but there's just a bag of rice. Percy, just describe for everybody else, let me get the microphone, what's on your plate.
Oh, looks really nice. Yeah, like food that I'd love to eat now.
I think you've got some chicken and some like cheesy white sauce and tomatoes, some spinach and some crispy potatoes. And Christine, well, yeah, you got your bag of rice, didn't you? Well, now, of course, as well, Percy, you're already wearing glasses. That's great. You get all the help that you need to see at school. Christine, unfortunately, you were playing in the playground the other day and somebody kicked a ball into your eye and it really hurts. And you've got to just wear an eye patch. Cover one eye for me with your hand. Oh. 2 experiences of school. Do they seem right to you? Our Bible reading spoke about favouritism. It also said that faith without action is dead. If this feels uncomfortable to you, the reality of favouritism. Favouritism that is sometimes decided by the world of mankind, sometimes decided by where in the world you're born, by accident, by illness, by disease. Let me ask you, what can we do? Has anyone got any suggestions? What can we do? Ron.
Well, one of my favourite parts of the Bible is faith without action is dead. Prayer without action is also dead as a doornail. You can pray for a week and do nothing. So what I would do is go out and, if you see a poor person, give them some money. That's what I do. If they don't like it, I'll take it back.
It sounds good, Ron. Thank you. And of course, have you got some ideas over here?
Well, maybe just to lead by example, instead of just moaning that there are so many poor people or too many disadvantaged people, start something and make them do it. But I wouldn't give them money. I would give them maybe a skill, like give the man a fish, and then he will fish. He would never fish, but then teach him how to, and then he'll find means of helping himself.
Yeah, so trying to help people help themselves. Also a really good thing. Jed?
You could sponsor a child in a different country.
Absolutely. And lots of you already do that through compassion, I know. Thank you so much. Diane?
This is something we can all do.
Well, tell them then.
Okay. This is something we can all do. Love in a box.
Holding up a Love in the Box leaflet. Absolutely. We can share. And that was the suggestion that we got from the 9 o'clock, is that we can learn to share better. Adam?
I'd say change the language we use. Yes, a famous missionary, in my eyes, a famous missionary said, if you want to change a culture, you need to change the language of the culture, which is why we're changing our ministry now. We'll explain more about that in a moment.
Well, tell us what you're changing
Okay,
from to now.
we were, Deaf Hearing United, and we're becoming Signers and Speakers United. We want to take the focus away from a strength or a limitation in a person just to a difference in the way we communicate. And we want to encourage both the deaf and the hearing pastors to put their identity in the family rather than in physical or sensory strength or limitation. So there's resistance from both groups, but it is changing and it's strengthening the family life.
Wonderful, thank you. So standing united, absolutely. Standing with people who are struggling, standing with the strong and saying, actually, this is uncomfortable. Do you know what? Admitting that it is uncomfortable is a big step that we sometimes struggle to make. So that's really important. Thank you, Adam, for reminding us of that. Anyone else got any other ideas before I ask Alison to put my dinner back in the fridge? Wonderful. Alison, if you could put my dinner back in the fridge then. Thank you very much. And folks at the front, thank you so much for your help. Thank you, Percy. Christine, can I have all of your bits back in here? Wonderful. I'll give you a hand back up.
Thank you very much.
You manage? Wonderful. Thank you so much for your help. Round of applause, everybody. So, does favouritism happen in your church? Does it happen in your school or your workplace? Some of those things that we've just talked about might help you understand how we might deal with it wherever it crops up. But if we are going to be a people of faith, a people who believe in a world that will be made better, a world that will be healed, a world that will be restored, because we see it when we sit in prayer with God and see his kingdom as God intends it to be, then let's not sit by and watch favoritism happen. Let's not sit by and do nothing. Let's remember that part of prayer, as Ron said, is action too, is joining in with God. And so I'm going to invite Adam up now to come and share to us from Signers and Speakers United, as he's just told us they're changing their name to. This is a couple of people that we support through our tithing fund, who have some links to East Grinstead and who do some work through Youth with a Mission, YWAM. So Adam, do you want to wander around one, or are you going to use that one?
Actually, I do love to wander around and interact with you more personally. But if I hold the microphone, I can't sign and talk at the same time. So because I want to sign and talk at the same time, actually make my message bilingual, in other words, equally accessible to visual communicators and oral communicators in the room. So I'm actually going to, sorry, not be quite so interactive. Have the slides up, please. Thanks very much. I better stand here, hadn't I? Okay. Okay. So, so my name is Adam. I'm from East Grinstead. I was born here, but I'm using Ugandan Sign Language, and I just want to give you like a short example of how we can communicate in two languages at the same time. Now, there's other issues. If you are like a professional interpreter, you will have some questions about that, because sign language, actually word order is different. But you can see from my you can see from my sign language, there's a connection between what I say and how I communicate through my hands. For example, British Sign Language, water. Ugandan Sign Language, water. So the second way, I'd say, is more visual. And that's what actually I love about Ugandan Sign Language. It's got a connection with American Sign Language. There's a whole lot of history about that. So I grew up hearing, but my deafness increased. I became deafer and deafer through time. And just to make it very short, I was working and teaching secondary school for about 20 years, and then my hearing reduced to such a time that I realized my marriage was suffering, and also my teaching work was suffering as well. So after depression for 6 months, I decided to learn sign language, and my wife accepted to learn. It was very important. We shared the issue. Anyway, through that was born our ministry. So I'm going to stop signing now, otherwise I'm going to run out of time. So, yes, back to the, thanks very much. On the right is where we lived in Uganda for 6 years. We started 2009, and we started in the top left corner, a place called Arua. And from there, our work has spread to about another 8 locations within Uganda and to about 4 or 5 locations outside Uganda. And we've got a new one just starting up, actually in northeast Congo, which I hope to go and visit next March. So the work is spread organically, and I thank Youth with a Mission. It's a Christian, international, interdenominational missions organisation that we've been a part of full-time for the last 15 years. And I have been very blessed through those partnerships and what I've learned from the different denominations and cultures that they represent. Next slide, please. This is an example. When I first joined Youth with a Mission, I wanted to do some biblical studies training, and of course, I'm partially deaf. How was I going to follow all the conversations in a large room of about 25 people? So the way we got round it was that Helen, my wife, sat on the opposite side of the room, and whenever I couldn't hear something, I would just wave to her, and then she would sign to me. And through that, I was able to access the biblical studies course. And that sensitized not just me, but the whole of that Youth with a Mission community in the Midlands, about 100 people. Next slide, please. Thank you. And one thing else we did there, we started to use sign as a way of communicating contemporary songs that had a Christian message. Do you remember the song Mike and the Mechanics, The Living Years? That's showing my age. But there's more. Lauren Daigle, You Say. Okay? There's all sorts of songs you can bring out. Interesting. You know, some singers, they're bringing out a kind of Christian principle, but they might not necessarily openly admit actually it's echoing a biblical principle. And what I did here, I've got a cross-cultural group of Youth with Mission staff, and they basically have learnt about 100 signs, British signs, in about 2 weeks. And we're only able to do that because of the blessings of WhatsApp. So basically, you can put the sign resource into a video, post it on WhatsApp, bring the group, those interested into the group, and in 2 weeks, you have a large number of people who've got 100 new signs in their vocabulary, preparing them for the time in our life when our hearing may drop. You may say, I'm not deaf, but statistically, at least 1 in 3 of us will need hearing aids by the age of 60. And it gets even higher as we go on. Next slide, please. So another way we've done to increase accessibility is to make games more accessible. This is chess, but I've made it large, colourful, and it's team-based. And I have used this in so many places and several different countries that I'm confident I could even go into the centre of East Grinstead with this game here. It's basically chess, but the way the pieces moved is put on the top of the cones. And if you're in the games industry, I pray you will come to me first. Can we do a deal to market this? Because it could be a Christmas game with someone like, is it Patel or something? You know, these games companies. Seriously. And it actually illustrates so many kingdom principles. In the game of visual chess, there is sacrifice. It's all about the kingdom. I couldn't believe it. The more I looked at chess, wow. But of course, it's got distorted. And in the West, we pay 1 against 1. We love to have an army. We want to be in charge. Okay, I'm bringing my male, perhaps my age group, into that as well. But that's what I've noticed. I didn't want to just interest men in the game. I wanted to interest women in the game. I wanted to interest children in the game. I wanted to interest the deaf in the game. I couldn't do that unless I made it visual. And when this game was when I went to Uganda, there were so many unemployed young adults. All they were doing was drinking homemade beer and playing Ludo. Do you remember Ludo? Now, what age were you when you started playing Ludo? Now, I don't know about you, I was about 4. One of the first counting games I played. But should young adults be playing that? And should it be men only? There was a need. You know, psychologists will tell us chess is one of the most developmentally good games we can play. And I would say it's excellent for discipleship. So, next slide, please. Okay, another thing, YWAM's heart is for more grounded biblical interpretation. So that's my wife Helen there. And basically on the slide on the left, there are basically 5 steps. Encourage everyone to observe the text. What is repeated? What names are used? What places are mentioned? And so on. What contrasts are made, what conditions are asked, what commands are given. And then once you've done that, before you start to interpret, then look at the background of the writer and the original audience. And only then should you start to ask the question, why? Why was the author making that point? How would the audience have reacted? Once you've done that, you can look at the timeless truths in the passage. What was true then? What's true now? Ben talks about favouritism. It's there then, it's there now. Do you know when Ben was there, I thought, a couple of cases. I get on a bus in Uganda, the risk of an accident is higher than the UK. Can't hide it. But guess what? They pray when they get on a bus. There's prayer on almost every bus at the beginning of a journey. But do you know what? I'm favoured towards myself. I tend only to pray when I get on the bus. You know, these buses are going through day and night across Uganda every day of the year. Probably about 200 buses doing right across. But do I actually think, Lord, I lift up those praying? Oh, no. It's more when I sit on the bus, then it's more important. You see the favouritism, it's there. So something to think about. Next slide, please. So This is now the deaf getting involved and the hearing. So what's wonderful, when you look at what's known as inductive Bible study, doing these 5 steps, you can engage the deaf and you can teach them new signs and new English at the same time. The hearing children or the hearing parents with the deaf child each start to learn more of each other's language. We found a tool that's more accessible to both. And I found actually as you engage with scripture, you can even do it with your day. Think of yesterday. Can you think of a repeated pattern in your day yesterday? Can you think of a contrast in your day yesterday? I'm sorry, I'm throwing out all sorts of ideas to you, but it blew my mind. And it's almost like the Lectio Divina that's been advocated amongst others, but essentially, how was God speaking to me today? And I really encourage you. I find God is screaming at me. I could give you so many examples, and I haven't got time. I was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Unbeknown, I met a comedian. I went to watch her with my wife, and I arrived, and she said, "Oh, Adam, there's a few more spaces for the stand-up. Would you like to have a go?" And I thought, actually, I'd been thinking that morning, it'd be quite fun to do it. And I had a tower crane driver story. Okay, the challenge was all the comedians before me had been doing jokes of quite a sexual nature, after which they made a profound point. So how do I get from a previous comedian who's been talking about erections and confessions to do something that's more godly? So I started to look at the erection of buildings. And a tower crane driver is an erection of buildings. And in the Bible, there's the erection of the Tower of Babel. So what I want to say to you is like Jesus did, he took people where they were, but he moved their focus. And that's what I've seen. You can do it with film and faith. You look at films. What are the repeated patterns in films and contrasts? You can take it, you can add subtitles, you can add interpreters, and now you've got an accessible resource that can be used, and it's the starting point. People are much more likely to switch on a film than they are to get out their Bible. So can we use that as a starting point, saying, do you know that story in the film is echoed in the Bible? Are you getting me? Next slide, please. So we've changed our name for the reasons I gave earlier. And we've put it in pictorial form and symbology form. It's not the final version on the right there, but we're moving. That's the way we're moving. Signers and Speakers United. Next slide, please. And this is, again, the Deaf in Action. And this is actually today's reading. Now, Ben might say to me after, he said, Adam, you should realise there's a little bit of a historical connection between the Anglican Communion and the Methodist Church. And so basically, this is today's reading. I got this 2 days ago. In Uganda, they had the same Bible reading today as you have had. And from doing this study and then doing the storyboard they create themselves, they produce their drama like Ben did. Could you roll the video, please? Now, it's deliberately silent. It's a visual message. So you've got a pastor in green. He's the only deaf YWAMer, I believe, in the whole of Africa. And we support him. And so you've got a wealthy person, church member, has come in. And they've been given a place right at the front. Now, of course, this person coming in seems a bit less reputable. And they've been asked to sit on the side. Can you see the echoes with what you were doing? And of course, then now, because one disreputable friend's come in, he brings the others. And he wants to sit on the chair, and he's told, no, I'm sorry, you don't look smart enough, you don't look like you earn enough, you can sit on the side. And what do we do when church is messy? Can you stop the video, please? So I just want to get you to listen to this idea. They produce this resort for the Bible reading every week. They don't just do the video, they actually prepare it first by looking at the text, doing the inductive Bible study, and then after that, producing the storyboard. Next slide, please. So things I'm thankful for, and I'd also thank Trinity Methodist for the support you've given Signers and Speakers United over, probably over the 10 years. It's been really beneficial
project here, it's called Cam Connect, Catering as Mission. Can you do business God's way? There's a big initiative in Africa called Farming God's Way. You may have seen the film Faith Like Potatoes. Basically, Christian farmers whose crop was failing, and they turned to God. They realized they had to turn to God, stop relying on their own strength. And the same thing has been applied to other types of business. They applied it to their strong Christians, and they run a catering and hospitality business. When they met us, they took on some deaf, unemployed youth, male and female. They trained them in hospitality and catering. They became part of their business. They employed 6 deaf and then 6 hearing for about 5 years. It thrived. Then there was jealousy from both unemployed hearing and unemployed deaf in the same town for different reasons. Favouritism, again, it comes up. It's there all the time. But on the back of that was sustainable agriculture. Now, sustainable agriculture is the heart that instead of using artificial or man-made chemicals to kill insects and actually prepare the soil, you do things in a far more organic way. So Signers Speakers Unite have been doing that. And what's wonderful about that, that creates another way to bond the signing and speaking members of a family, because agriculture is visual. It can be done together, but it's never something they've done in the past. So we've actually trained workers, and they're now actually spreading out through different parts of Uganda and even into South Sudan as well. So do please lift up them in prayer, those projects. Next slide, please. So this is a big thing for the future, and this is where my invitation to you comes in. On the top left there is a structure for some, a training to create strong families. As in here, as there, I'm sure you've seen statistics. Over 50% of children in the UK are now having just with a single parent family. That's not a judgment, it's just a statistic. And it's similar in Uganda as well. And it's even a bigger issue where there are deaf and hearing in the same family, because there's a communication breakdown. That's why we want to change the language. And we actually want to give people better blocks on which to strengthen their family. So they're not just a stronger, united family themselves, but they are a stronger testimony to the local community, and the church itself is a stronger witness to the wider world. And so that's for the first time we're going to have a Signers Speakers United camp. And you would say, well, big deal, Adam, what's that? Well, if I tell you beforehand, it wasn't a local camp, it was a national camp. Beforehand, it wasn't a family camp, it was a youth camp. And before, it was a deaf camp, and now it's a Signers and Speakers United camp. Can you see how the language changes who's interested? Put in a simple way, do you get on a bus that doesn't go where you're going? I don't know anyone who gets on a bus that's not going where they're going. And it struck me, God said to me, there was a broken bus, and God said to me, Adam, do you want to get on that bus? I looked at the bus. Well, I looked, there was no destination. I looked at the wheels, they were flat. I didn't want to get on it. And he said, exactly. So people get on things that are going where they want to go. So what are we doing in our churches? What vision do we have? Do we actually communicate our vision as the destination of our fellowship? Do we call it a church or a fellowship? All these big issues and all those things there. So please, there's a Signers Speakers United camp. So number one, there's 3 things you can do, all beginning with P. Number one, please pray for it, because it's groundbreaking. There's jealousy. And I believe there's going to be some UK team members amongst actually being part of that camp, participating, learning from it. So if you would like to be part of that, please speak to Jane or myself at the end of the service. Secondly, if you have an unused smartphone and you'd be willing to clear the data of it, what's the second thing you need to do? Reset it, factory reset it, and it's unlocked. It would be a fantastic gift for signing youth leaders we work alongside. Smartphones there are much more expensive,
And they also, even if they have a text phone, they actually find it hard to put words together. Once they've got a camera with a phone with a camera, they can communicate in their mother tongue. And then you can have much more bilingual conversations. So those are things to lift up in prayer. This is going to be put on the church website. Forgive me for rattling through this, but I just want to stir you up. This church, your fellowship inspires me in many ways. And I just want to encourage you to keep going and show you how I had an unexpected opening at the Fringe Festival. To actually testify to my faith, the previous comedian said he'd lost his faith. I said, I still believe Jesus is real and I'm following him. God bless you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, you are quite right. There is a historic connection between the Church of England and the Methodist Church. Even beyond that, the reason that we have for the same readings is because we all use the Revised Common Lectionary. We don't always follow it here because sometimes I get a feel to do something different, but often we follow the Revised Common Lectionary, as do many other churches. I really also enjoyed your comment there about the Fringe Festival and God using the sort of shocking and difficult things where people are at to move them on. And it reminded me on this Education Sunday of a time where I was in a school. I was in a school with a Year 9 class. I can't remember what the topic of the lesson had actually been on, but we'd had a few minutes at the end and we were doing Guerrilla Christian, ask me and the other youth leader that were in the school any question you like. And one of them foolishly said to me, "What's your favourite Bible verse?" And the teacher, even more foolishly, when I looked at her and said, you know, what can I quote? She said, if it's in the Bible, I'm sure it's all good. So I turned to Ezekiel chapter 23, verse 20. You all know it very well. If you've got little or sensitive ears, cover them. There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emissions was like that of horses. And I promise you, I have never seen Year 9 boys reach for a copy of the Bible quicker in my life. So stand-up comedy and God go together quite well. The prophets have always used quite shocking language to get people to pay attention, to draw them in. It's fantastic. And what I noticed particularly in what you were saying, Adam, there is that actually it's not about sort of one group having to do all of the changing. It's not about trying to get the deaf community to fit into normal life. And it's not about trying to get the speakers to fit into deaf life. It's about both sides changing and coming together and doing something different together. Is that together? Absolutely. And so if we are going to keep working towards that vision, then we have to keep our hearts humble, which of course also happens in prayer as we come before God, stand before God, and remember that we are not worthy. We have work to do on ourselves just as much as other people have work to do on themselves. Oh, God is good. All the time. And all the time. Very good, absolutely. And we are called, whoever we are, whatever our skills are, by God, we are summoned by him, rich in our diversity. And that's the song that we're going to sing together now.